An American aircraft carrier entering the Strait of Hormuz is not just a naval movement. It is a message measured in steel, radar range, oil prices, missile arcs, and reaction time. When a carrier strike group moves into that narrow corridor, entire governments begin recalculating risk within minutes. Because the Strait of Hormuz is one of the few places on Earth where global economics and military escalation occupy the exact same piece of water. To understand why that matters, you have to understand the geometry first. At its narrowest navigational point, the shipping lanes inside the strait compress into corridors barely wide enough to comfortably manage dense commercial traffic. Tankers carrying energy supplies to major economies pass through predictable routes every single day. Above them sit overlapping radar networks, coastal missile positions, drone surveillance corridors, patrol craft bases, and military airfields spread across the surrounding coastline. And now imagine pushing a floating airbase through that environment. A modern American aircraft carrier is one of the most heavily defended military assets on the planet. It carries strike aircraft, surveillance systems, electronic warfare capabilities, layered missile defenses, and escort ships specifically designed to intercept incoming threats. But Hormuz changes the equation. Open ocean gives carriers room to maneuver, distance to detect threats early, and flexibility to reposition. The strait removes much of that comfort. Everything becomes compressed. Detection windows shrink. Engagement timelines collapse. And even minor incidents suddenly carry strategic consequences. That is why the movement of a U.S. carrier into the region immediately triggers attention far beyond the Middle East itself. Oil markets respond. Insurance companies respond. Naval intelligence centers respond. Rival militaries begin tracking formation patterns almost instantly because nobody believes the danger comes from one giant cinematic battle. The real danger comes from proximity. A drone operating too close to a destroyer. A radar lock interpreted as targeting behavior. A fast attack boat crossing defensive boundaries. A missile battery activating for only a few seconds longer than expected. Inside the Gulf, escalation does not need hours. Sometimes it only needs confusion. As the carrier strike group advances toward Hormuz, the operational picture becomes layered with invisible pressure. Long before the public sees dramatic imagery of fighter jets or warships, military systems are already competing silently across the region. Surveillance satellites reposition overhead. Maritime patrol aircraft widen coverage patterns. Signals intelligence platforms monitor emissions from coastal defense systems. Every movement is being watched, and every side knows it. The American strategy in such an environment is not simply to show force. It is to demonstrate survivability under pressure. A carrier strike group entering contested waters sends a calculated signal. The United States believes it can operate inside the threat envelope and still maintain escalation control. That signal matters because Iran's military doctrine is built around a different assumption entirely. Iran does not need to defeat the U.S. Navy in conventional fleet combat. It only needs to complicate the environment enough to increase the cost, uncertainty, and danger of American operations inside confined regional waters. That is where asymmetric pressure becomes critical. Fast attack boats, coastal anti-ship missiles, mobile launch systems, naval mines, armed drones, electronic interference, swarm tactics. None of these systems alone can replicate the firepower of a carrier strike group, but together, inside a constrained maritime corridor, they create what military planners call layered disruption. The goal is not necessarily destruction. The goal is saturation, hesitation, and disruption of operational tempo. And that changes how every commander behaves. Because in Hormuz, response timing becomes everything. A destroyer screening the carrier might detect a fast-moving surface contact at high speed. Operators now have seconds to classify intent. Civilian vessel, harassment maneuver, armed attack platform, rules of engagement exist, but reality moves faster than doctrine during compression events. The mathematics are brutal. A missile launched from a coastal battery may travel toward its target at hundreds of meters per second. Defensive systems aboard escort ships must detect, classify, track, prioritize, and intercept, often while simultaneously filtering civilian traffic and electronic clutter from the environment. Now add drones overhead. Add communication interference. Add commercial tankers moving through the same corridor. Add political leadership, demanding restraint unless absolutely necessary. That is the real battlefield, not chaos, controlled instability. And that instability creates opportunities for signaling from both sides. American carriers entering the region often operate alongside destroyers, equipped with advanced missile defense systems capable of engaging aerial threats at multiple ranges. Combat air patrols extend outward from the carrier, creating a moving defensive umbrella while surveillance aircraft monitor coastal activity. But Iran's strategy does not rely on matching technological symmetry. Instead, it relies on density. The density of terrain, the density of launch positions, the density of uncertainty. Many coastal missile systems can relocate quickly after activation. Some launchers may operate from hidden positions along mountainous terrain overlooking portions of the Gulf. Small naval craft can disperse rapidly across civilian maritime environments. Drone operations can emerge from unpredictable locations. This forces a carrier group to divide attention continuously. And divided attention is dangerous in confined waters. At the same time, there is another dimension often overlooked in public discussion: economics. The Strait of Hormuz is not merely a military flashpoint. It is an energy artery. A significant percentage of globally traded oil passes through these waters. Even temporary disruption creates ripple effects across international markets. Shipping delays alone can trigger price volatility within hours. That means every military maneuver inside the region carries economic consequences far beyond the immediate tactical picture. One intercepted drone, one warning shot, one damaged tanker. Suddenly, financial markets react before governments even issue statements. And adversaries understand this perfectly, which is why strategic pressure inside Hormuz often operates below the threshold of open warfare. Harassment without direct engagement, shadowing operations, surveillance flights, radar illumination, maritime interception, cyber interference, psychological pressure. The objective is not always immediate combat. Sometimes the objective is exhaustion. Force the opponent to sustain high operational readiness indefinitely. Force crews to remain under constant pressure. Force political leadership to balance deterrence against escalation risk. That pressure accumulates. Hours become days. Days become operational fatigue. And fatigue changes decision-making. Inside carrier operations centers, this environment transforms routine procedures into strategic calculations. Flight operations continue around the clock. Fighters launch for patrol rotations while electronic warfare aircraft monitor signals along the coastline. Intelligence officers compare changing radar patterns against historical behavior. Naval escorts maintain overlapping defensive sectors around the carrier itself. Every movement has purpose. Spacing between ships matters. Speed changes matter. Air patrol timing matters. Because if something happens, the response chain must already exist before the threat fully emerges. This is why the phrase "war fears" carries more meaning in Hormuz than almost anywhere else. Not because war is inevitable, but because the environment compresses the time available to prevent it. In open oceans, naval forces can reposition across vast distances. In Hormuz, maneuver space is limited. Civilian traffic complicates targeting. Coastlines remain close enough for land-based systems to influence maritime operations directly. That creates a uniquely unstable balance. And both sides study each other constantly. American analysts examine Iranian missile dispersal behavior, drone flight corridors, and naval coordination patterns. Iranian observers monitor carrier formations, aircraft launch cycles, and escort ship positioning. Every side looking for weakness. Every side trying not to reveal too much. But there is another layer beneath the visible standoff, one far less predictable. Technology itself has changed the tempo of maritime confrontation. Drones now extend surveillance ranges dramatically. Satellite imagery updates faster than ever. Electronic warfare systems can interfere with navigation, targeting, or communication under certain conditions. Artificial intelligence assists with tracking and identification processes across crowded operational environments. That means future confrontations may unfold at machine speed before political leadership fully comprehends what is happening. A radar anomaly triggers automated classification. A defense system shifts posture. An aircraft changes vector. A command center interprets intent. The escalation ladder becomes steeper because information now moves faster than diplomacy. And yet, despite all the technology involved, human judgment still sits at the center of every critical moment. A ship captain deciding whether a contact is threatening. An air defense operator evaluating radar returns. A drone controller interpreting movement patterns. A political leader calculating acceptable risk. Those decisions remain frighteningly human, which is why the Strait of Hormuz continues to matter so profoundly in global security calculations. It is not simply a narrow waterway between coastlines. It is a pressure chamber where military doctrine, economic vulnerability, energy dependency, and geopolitical rivalry intersect inside one confined battlespace. And when an American aircraft carrier moves into that environment, the signal extends far beyond military symbolism. It tells allies that access remains open. It tells rivals that deterrence is active. It tells markets that instability may increase. And it tells every commander operating nearby that the margin for error has become dangerously thin. For now, the carrier continues moving. Fighters still patrol overhead. Destroyers still screen the perimeter. Missile batteries still wait along distant coastlines. Commercial tankers still pass through the same narrow channels beneath overlapping surveillance systems and competing military doctrines. No major battle has begun. No definitive line has been crossed. But the strategic reality remains unchanged. The Strait of Hormuz does not require full-scale war to threaten global stability. It only requires one moment where fear outruns control.